now. We have Dieter Hochuli from the University of Sydney and Jenny Newell from the Australian Museum. I'm going to let them introduce themselves so I'm not standing here awkwardly talking for too long. But we also had another guest on this panel, which is Eggpicnic, who are a fantastic duo in Canberra, and rather than having too many Zoom-ins, they've done a pre-record, so that's going to pop up at some point. Dieter, I believe you're first, then Jenny, and then Eggpicnic will be with us. So I'm going to give you a mic.
You want to click through and do that? Oh, terrific, yep. Thank you very much. Jenny, would you like to introduce... Zoe told us to keep this very organic and ad-lib, so Jenny and I are just meeting for the first time. So I'm Dieter.
Hi, Dieter.
Oh.
Hi. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Jenny. This is how partnerships with designers typically kick off. So it's thank you. So am I talking? Yeah.
You go for it. You go for it.
Oh,
We've got 5 minutes each.
Yep. Okay. So can you yell at us? So my name's Dieter Hochuli. I'm from the University of Sydney. I'm a scientist. Not a designer, as you can probably guess here. I've worked with Zoe and Andrew here with respect... I can sit down, can't I? On the Urban Field Naturalist project that you can see through there. That's been a really important window for me for changing my mindset, probably my practice, and also giving me the opportunity to do some things that I think I wouldn't have done otherwise. I think we cut those slides out, so but the short version is that Caitlin, who you might be able to see up in the corner there wearing a seagull top, and I are working on a program that's really been inspired by the Urban Field Naturalist project to work with Headspace Bankstown to take, who are a youth mental health service provider out there, to take people out into nature and actually live some of the values. But I'm talking a little bit about citizen science today and a little bit from, I suppose, a scientist's perspective of these things. So one of the things about ecologists doing environmental research is I have to work with a lot of different people: chemists, geologists, physicists, architects, psychologists, social scientists, and it's been a real challenge to learn their language and culture and actually learn the ways in which I can collaborate with them. And it came as a really rude shock to me to work out. I actually had to work with designers as well. But one of the things that came out of that was that there's a real opportunity for people like myself to learn from the practice and the opportunities and the skills that you've got and actually do a much better job of communicating our science better. And the reason is that we do a poor job of typically communicating that. I think we try hard, but if you look at scientific literacy broadly, you can see there's popular science that complains about it. You might not be able to make out, the why do many reasonable people doubt science thing. There's a problem with how we do things. We don't have good conversations publicly about science. It's a brief list of things we don't have good conversations about: climate change, environmental management, GMOs, evolution, alternative medicines, nutrition, vaccination. Rebecca mentioned koalas. We don't have good conversations about those. A lot of ecologists really are annoyed by the emphasis on those animals over the ones that are really endangered. Anyway, there's a lot of issues to talk about here. I have one message before I talk a little bit about our citizen science. Ecology is not science. I'm a scientist, but if I Google science, that's what scientists look like. And this is what ecologists look like. Apparently we stare at plants outside a lot. What I wanted to do is really talk a little bit about the fact we don't communicate this. We don't communicate that science is a process. It is not a series of facts. We focus very heavily on yelling facts down. I mean, even some of the infographics design approaches are really inspired by saying what we know rather than what we do. I don't think we talk about the practice of science, and that is a critical part of enhancing science literacy. So, a very brief segue into some citizen science. This is a big city birds project. We work on brush turkeys. One thing I would like the designers to do, these turkeys build a giant mound, they rake up a ton of leaf litter, hatch their eggs in them. I did try very hard to get the hashtag moundfulness going, just for people to go and stare. It didn't fly. But I bequeath that to you guys if you can fix it. We work on these turkeys, and what I want to do is just two things. Tell you about how we learned something about it through citizen science, and how we would really love to do a better job. So we tagged individuals. This is a really interesting pastime. Matthew Hall, who was a PhD student leading this, we were lucky enough to get money to create an app to help track where these birds were going through people reporting it. And we got this really, I'm not sure how I'm going to get this video to fly here. That's a turkey, that's me. I don't know if that's going to, am I able to get that video to go, or is that, do I just, oh. Yeah, that's me. That's me outside my office at the University of Sydney. That's a turkey that was wandering around the campus. It got tagged. It face planted itself. That wasn't my fault. The reason I wanted to show this is that citizen science projects have let us track where these animals are moving, and we've been lucky enough to basically do work that we would not have been able to do without multiple eyes on the ground helping us out. There's a bit of ad for our thing. Matt Hall, who's leading this project as part of his PhD, recently published a paper about how these animals are doing unexpected things in Australian landscapes. We've also been able to show that these citizen science approaches have given us insights into this bird in very different ways. Different projects give us different insights. I just wanted to basically use that as a very brief example of saying this is what we do to try and understand things. We can't do this work without the eyes on the ground. We'd love people to know a little bit more about their movements. The graphic that you can see there is something that's handled by Austral Ecology. We have a bunch of enthusiastic amateurs that will provide a graphical abstract or a cartoon to go with our papers to tweet out. The journal has done a great job promoting this as a thing, but we just realised that we're scratching the surface, literally, what we can do there. So my point is basically, please remember that science is a process, it's not a series of facts. If you can help us communicate that better than just yelling at people saying turkeys move lots of places or it's getting warmer, I'd love to find out how it's going. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Zoe said I couldn't talk about this stuff, but so I'll just click through those quickly. Yeah. Oh, was that just an ad for a book that's available in all good bookstores? It's back again.
Hi everyone. So I'm Jenny Newell and I'm the Curator for Climate Change at the Australian Museum, and I run the Climate Solutions Centre. We're really focused on communicating effectively on climate change to a broad audience, using diverse voices to do that, really bringing in as many positive stories as we can to help create positive futures. And what we're trying to do is really help people to engage with climate change and climate solutions, really help them to understand what's out there that they can get on board with themselves. And given that, we really wanted to make sure we're not just preaching to the converted, preaching to people who already know what they need to do. We wanted to make sure that we're getting beyond the museum's walls. We wanted to make sure we're getting out to towns and peri-urban areas, all sorts of places, and really meeting people where they are and helping to connect to things that mean a lot to them, values that they have. And what we decided to do is create this exhibition, which is a touring exhibition called Future Now. And I decided to use dioramas. And that's because, well, who doesn't love a diorama? I mean, really, we all love these cute little tiny things. I'll show you a close-up of one of these dioramas that we have. And we selected dioramas because we knew that this was something that would be appealing for people. We knew that this was a good way to get messages across about ways of living sustainably, ways of regenerating our places we love, ways of working with each other. And what you can do with the diorama is appeal to people in a range of different ways. Part of that is helping people to see different ways of doing things, really helping people to see that opportunity to do things in a more effective way, in a more sustainable way. That sort of opportunity that Rebecca was referring to. We really need to help people to see that. Helping people to imagine a better future, also better ways of doing things now, and helping them to see the different types of solutions that are out there. So we really wanted to make sure that people were seeing that there's nature-based ways forward, there's community-based ways, and technology-based solutions as well. So just a few examples there of the kinds of things we feature in this exhibition. What's been great about having this exhibition go out to towns, it's actually what it's been doing so far is going out to shopping centres. So it was a partnership with Stockland Shopping Centres, and it's gone out to over the last 4 months, it's gone to 4 different shopping centres, and just seeing people interact with it has been fabulous. So people will tend to come up and just go, oh, this is great, I would love to live there. Oh, it'd be great, I want to live in that house there. And so it's been really wonderful. It's really worked in the ways we hoped it would. It's really helped people to see, actually, we can bring nature into our living places. We can live in more communal ways. We can live with all sorts of amazing new technologies like biotech. And you can see in the bottom corner there some of the things that I did research on and spoke to lots of experts here at UTS and elsewhere about whether it's timber-built high-rises or biotech. The C3 group here helped me with designing those algae solutions there. Lots of different types of solar. There's wind facilities here in this city as well as having some really important First Nations approaches in each of the 3 dioramas that we constructed. And you can see here we commissioned a First Nations artist to create a mural for us for this little tiny town. We also have some nice things like a repair cafe and shared workspaces and so on. So there's really lovely, and community gardens, and people just really responded to these environments very, very positively. So it's that whole thing of, I was really inspired by 2040 and Regenerating Australia as well, and books like Christiana Figueres and Tom Rivett-Carnick's book, The Future We Choose. That powerful thing of presenting positive futures, I think, is really something that the museum can do. And the other reason why I wanted to make sure we were presenting a sort of a slightly different exhibition for the Australian Museum. We don't normally do dioramas anymore. It's sort of a bit of an old school thing. The reason I wanted to do that was because I just wanted to get away from things that had to be read or things that were flat images, but really particularly getting away from things that had to be read in English. I wanted something that was going to reach across all sorts of communities. People who aren't confident or comfortable reading English can still get something out of these dioramas. And I also wanted them to be accessible for kids of all ages. And we've used videos, we've used a little bit of text, some diagrams. We worked with a wonderful graphic designer to help us create these diagrams that would help people understand some of these important things that they could be picking up on themselves. We've also got a little trail for kids there. That one there is asking kids to look around for where you can look at where there's a good place for frogs to live in this particular house and garden diorama. We also have a few diagrams to help people understand some of the basics of climate change, and we also have one for the for the carbon cycle, and some key points like cultural burning, which we consulted with Fire Sticks Alliance on, and key points that are made throughout the dioramas and throughout the text about ways that doing all these things that we're representing can help you save money and give you clean air and clean water. And that was just responding to all the work that Rebecca Huntley had done on what sorts of values we needed to be able to connect to with that broader audience, really the cautious and disengaged audiences particularly out there, rather than the alarmed and concerned, although all those audiences still are looking for direction on what they can do. So here's just a few little samples of the house and garden diorama. You can see there's animals in there everywhere. We've just got, the model makers had so much fun. These were made by Modelcraft in St. Peter's, and they had heaps of fun because they normally do really boring architectural models, and so they just went to town with these, and they had all these little animals. There's kookaburras and wombats in every single diorama, and all these, there's kookaburras, there's kangaroos, and there's all sorts of things. There's bats. We asked for bats, so I'm very keen on bats. And in this one, the Caring for Our Country model, there's all sorts of black snakes and things in the forest as well, chasing after a hiker. So it's pretty great. We've got a regenerative farm with a bit of a permaculture garden. There's a creek and a forest with cultural burn in progress, and then a sea with some seaweed farms and a wave turbine and fishing that's being done in a more sort of sustainable way with a biodegradable net. There's the permaculture herb garden and the cultural burn taking place in the cooler weather with a low fire and a family. One of our First Nations team at the museum said, make sure you include a mum holding a bub. So we managed to get one of those in there too. again, thanks heaps to the model makers for making that all possible. We consulted with many people, of course, many experts, and we were able to feature videos with many of those people as well, and people like Peter Hochuli from Indigrow, who helped us out with the bush foods portions of these dioramas. So we have lots of activations. I do lots of talks with students and lots of school groups, and that's been really wonderful to see how they're responding. But we're also doing social research with 55.5, and they're doing lots of tracking how this exhibition has worked. So we'll have a bit more information soon, but it seems indications so far is that most people take away at least one thing which they think they might like to do themselves, so, or at least an idea. And a lot of people are really excited by the new technologies that we've included in these exhibitions. We've been able to use little bits from the dioramas in different ways to get our messages out, whether it's on Instagram, really helping to open up questions and dialogues with the public. And as I was saying, we do use the latest research that, the Climate Compass that Rebecca Huntley and the Sunrise Foundation have produced, as well as our own with 55.5. So we're really understanding our audiences as best we can. I recommend looking at our website at the Australian Museum. Do a little search on our website for climate change, and you'll see that we've got a lot going on there. Not only our Climate Solutions Centre, but a lot of extra information there about climate change for people who are looking for information on impacts, as well as an AR that you can click into. You can also use it on your desktop, but this is something that we've partnered with ABC, CSIRO and Foria to create this virtual town, Mount Resilience. So it's a little bit like a digital diorama, but you can explore this and find out how to protect your own community from fire, floods and severe storms. So that's it from me, but happy to take questions. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Chris and this is Camilla and we're at Eggpicnic. We are a Canberra-based design studio devoted to wildlife conservation. First of all, we wanted to say thank you to Zoe for giving us this opportunity to discuss one in particular project that we've been working on that talks about the collaboration between science and design. So we are a design studio and we work across illustration, fine art prints, public art, animation, and also we're moving now more in towards augmented reality.
We create characters that try to find line between art and design, and since the very beginning we've been collaborating with scientists to get the message across in regards to population declines, climate change, and all the issues that our wildlife currently face. We speak from a position of hope. We bring people joy. We find that opens up a door and people start connecting with the characters that we create, and then that leads to the opportunity to educate the public, to raise public support, and to raise awareness around the conservation issues. So in 2020, we were contacted by Dr. Kate Umbers. She's a senior zoologist of the Western Sydney University from the School of Science, and she found her work because she found that we had species that nobody really illustrates or talks about. It's very rare species that are endangered. She was very interested, and she said, I found your work and people are responding to your work, people are listening. I want to study the impact that it's having, and I want to quantify the impact of art on conservation. So in 2020, we started the co-funded project called Friends in High Places. She's been studying the Australian Alps for just over 10 years, I believe, and highly threatened by climate change. So all the species depend on the snow melts, and by 2070, it's predicted that there will be a reduction of around, I think, 97% less snow. So she came to us and said, we need to urgently raise public support for this, and we'll do it through art. So she actually did a really beautiful opening speech for one of our exhibitions in which she highlights that scientists are truth seekers, that they know exactly what's happening on the ground, but the matters of the heart must be left to the arts, and that's why we together are such a force. So the project consists of two parts. So the first part was developing a whole collection and illustration of the Australian alpine species that Kate chose. And then those were available through our website and you could purchase them. And at the moment of purchasing them, there was a 5-minute survey that we developed with the University of Sociologists and ourselves and Kate. And that data is actually currently being processed. It's already been collected, so we're really excited to find out about the results. But the second stage, and I'll let Chris tell you more about it, is in 2 weeks' time, we're installing a public art installation that's also going to be attached to a survey.
So we were given a space in Canberra Airport in the Departures Lounge to install this large-scale public art, which is approximately 20 metres long, and which is going to feature all of these species from the alpine areas that were created for this co-funder grant. And attached to that, there's going to be a QR code which people can scan, and then it'll ask them specific questions about climate change. What do they know about them? What do they know about the species? Do they understand what their species are and if they're threatened or not? So again, to build upon that sort of data collection of how art can have an impact upon conservation.
Yeah. For us, it's really important to reframe the traditional perspectives of conservation, making them inclusive, inviting people to participate, and depicting the animals from a position of hope rather than doom and gloom, and predisposing people to loss by showing them either, dying or melting, sort of those are the old ways of how people used to communicate conservation. But we need to glorify them. We need to make them look like the characters, the amazing characters that they are, and that they are worth saving because they are. So for us, it's really important to use the graphic elements, the colors and the bold shapes and the small eyes, very characteristic, and it gives them almost like a human-like personality. And that creates connection with people, and that invites people into the conversation. So that's how we work around most of our projects, is always collaborating with science. So we're really happy to have had this opportunity to share this with you. For the results of the survey and the study of the impact of art on conservation, make sure to follow us on socials, because we will be publishing that as soon as we have the results, and we're really excited to share that with everyone. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity, and wishing you all a great day.
Right, looking to Zoe for guidelines. We got 5 minutes, have we? Tim. We could just have a conversation, or we could take questions regarding the dioramas, looking at climate change, or scientists complaining about designers. That's.
Question over there?
Yeah, just regarding the dioramas, can you talk us through procedurally what the research behind that was? Like a lot of talking to experts, but what does that look like? How do you go through those processes?
Yeah, so I guess when I knew I was going to be able to do a touring exhibition, I started consolidating the research I'd been doing over the previous 2 years, I suppose, about climate solutions and what's happening in Australia particularly. And I had done another exhibition just before, so I had quite a lot of good contacts already with people who are doing great work in Australia in lots of different modes. And I guess I kept amassing all of that and having to try and winnow down which things I felt were most important to include in a diorama, and started to create big lists of all the elements. And my project manager kept getting really peeved with me because I kept making it longer and longer, and she'd say, look, and once we'd sent that list to the model makers, I had to try and stop adding things, but it was quite hard because I kept, new things are happening all the time. I just wanted to put more and more in, but I just did up my own sketches of the kinds of landscapes I wanted to be able to present, and so then those drawings were then given to the model makers. So sometimes someone at UTS would say, we've just been doing a project to develop a better bus shelter, for instance, and so I'd say, let's get that in, and so they'd help me out with pictures, and I'd just send them through to the model makers, and they'd create their own little 3D models of an exact bus shelter that had been designed here at UTS, and so we're able to put that in. And it was a combination of those sorts of things, me just saying, no, we need more green, and some things being printed out according to specific new bits of technology or new ways of doing things. So a lot of conglomeration of lots of different cross-disciplinary kinds of knowledge all coming together. Does that answer your question? actually, no, because I guess I was talking to people throughout. There was, just trying to think whether, with the algae, I guess we were, there was something I wasn't entirely sure about, and Professor Peter Ralph very kindly said, no, I think probably you need to change that particular part of those rods you've got on the ceiling of that shopping centre, and you change them a little bit, but there's those sorts of things were, but mostly it was fairly straightforward, because I'd had, lots of conversations over quite a long time. Yeah, thanks.
I just wanted to follow on from that, is that I know the Australian Museum is right in the middle of the city, and the dioramas going out to all those places, but it'd be an amazing public art project in the middle of sort of Martin Place, right up near Parliament House. If you could make it like protected enough under some protection. I just think it'd be amazing to take up a whole part of Martin Place as a public art project.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, good idea. What was that? Yeah, good idea. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Can you answer some questions?
I just want to follow up also from that, because I think it's a fantastic idea to also have them in shopping centres or in areas where people don't expect them to see that sort of stuff, because it's super commercial. Do you also give advice then, where do you get that sort of vision into reality? Where are the architects who need to go and see? What do you have to do to get, say, the car charger right next to the couch? And how do we actually make this whole vision become more reality? Do you provide advice, speak to your MP, or what is it? Or is it just sort of like a vision that will stay a vision and we'll just all go back to our concrete and homes that are heat sinks, like out when I particularly look at Lend-Lease development in Campbelltown, the koalas, I know some people are not, but that's the last koala colony, and they're just going to bulldoze everything. And it's just going to be black Bruce. So, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh wow, that would be fantastic for an area out there, because we need to stop the heat sink architecture.
Yeah, thank you. Really good points. We do include action points on each of the label rails. I'm trying to think it's maybe this way. And a lot of those things have specific points. That's okay. Particular organisations or government websites you can go to. And we also have on our main website for the exhibition, so that we've got QR codes on each of the label rails, and that can take you to our website, and there's more information there with specific things you can do. We do mention it's always important to talk to your MP, and there's the Good Car Co you can talk to if you want to get a second-hand EV, and there's lots of different things that people can do practically. And we also, I should mention that our website has the whole text of the exhibition in 4 different languages, so we're trying to make sure that it's as accessible as possible. So all those action points are available not just in English, but other languages too. So that's, I guess we're trying to do as much as we can to show, shine a light on a pathway to action, something that people can actually make happen in their own lives. I guess I haven't done so much of the pointing out the kinds of political action that people need to take. I really wanted to make sure that people were recognising how they can upscale their power through collective action, but I was really mostly talking about things like community-based, things in your own neighbourhood and so on, but not so much, joining political parties or taking things up to that level. I wanted to make sure it felt very comfortable for people, and that it seemed accessible and doable, and join your local bush care group, because that has a huge impact, and things like that. So hopefully that's done enough.
So a question for you, Dieter. I recently spent a bit of time filming with John Martin out with the flying foxes at Harbin Creek, and we had an awful lot of people coming up to us and saying, God, aren't they disgusting, I wish they weren't here, how do we get rid of them, how do we get them out of the city? How do you think that we as creators could better communicate the virtues of urban wildlife and try and change people's minds and kind of bring them around to embracing urban wildlife a bit better.
Yeah, John's part of the Big City Birds project too, and as a co-supervisor at Matthews. Look, I mean, human-wildlife conflict is embedded in a lot of the things that we do. It's a really important question. You mentioned the flying foxes. The turkeys aren't everyone's cup of tea either. I guess part of it's a sort of a hearts and minds thing. One of the gateways we've found has actually been communicating some of the remarkable things these animals do. In the case of the flying foxes, it's some of the migrations that they entertain, as well as their catastrophic responses to extreme heat events. They're two things that people, even if you don't like flying foxes, when 50,000 of them drop out of trees through heat stress, it's like many canaries in a coal mine. It's so that's one of the things. But I think the beauty of these animals is often understated. I spoke, for instance, to a group of people last night about spiders, and for the same sort of thing, just trying to get people to realise how remarkable these animals are. And I guess you could buy the book that was championed by Zoe, The Urban Field Naturalist's Guide to the Creatures in Your Neighbourhood, which I think my experience has been that there's an appetite for some of those things. I think one of the big things, if you're out in Western Sydney, we have to do a much better job communicating our science and some of the great stories about nature and cities to culturally and linguistically diverse communities. And I think that's a really, no disrespect to the audience here, but there's certainly, it'd be hard to say that what we've got in this room represents the city that we service. And I think we need to find a better way to do that. So I think there's multiple strands there. I think the story will tell itself once people learn more about all these animals. I think that there's a remarkable array of animals and plants in this country. The flying foxes are one of them. Some of them are incredibly annoying, but that's life, isn't it? So
I should just quickly say that Zoe designed a gorgeous program about bringing exactly that kind of knowledge and excitement about looking after bats to us at the Australian Museum, and we worked with some wonderful people, scientists and a First Nations person who's a custodian for bats. Yeah, so to try and bring some of these really exciting ways of connecting to bats into really wonderful, creative and graphic forms of communication, which was a beautiful, beautiful program, which will continue. So it's great, and it'll be on the website soon.
Can we take one more question? Or okay, that was. Oh, sorry.
Sure. I was just wondering if anyone would like to comment on, it seems to be sort of this pattern of considering science as the knowledge producer and art and design as the communication arm, and what benefits and how we can actually make it real for the art and design producers to come into the knowledge production. So rather than producing the knowledge and then dialing up one of the designers, bring us in right at the beginning.
Yeah. We do that at the museum. Anyway, that's good. Over to you.
Yeah, I think the notion of the designers as a service to the scientists is something that I would disavow. I mean, because I think the point that some of the things we've been able to do as a group with our project with John and Zoe and Andrew and Tom wouldn't have happened by any of us alone, and that's a really important thing that I've learned from that. But in terms of, I think the proper conversations are really important. Like, I mean, for example, in my case, you mentioned being knowledge producers. That's a nice thing to say about science, but on my day job, it's more like a contact sport than gee, we created some knowledge, let's share it. I think a lot of science is contested, and I don't know how we can communicate that well. I think these sorts of events, these sorts of opportunities to talk, and just even finding the people that you're comfortable and happy to work with. I'm sure I would be not good for many designers because of my, I don't want to say beliefs, I don't know what, we all come with different baggage when we're collaborating, and I think when you find your people that you're comfortable working with, whether it's scientists, designers, or any of the people that I mentioned, I actually have worked with all those kinds of people and co-published, so co-designing and being there at the start is a really big thing, but part of that is actually forming relationships and just going, there's a lot more to it. So I think it's really, I hope I didn't say, we want to do this, please help us. It's probably more that I've learned that I had probably thought of it that way in the past, and I've learnt an awful lot. And I've had a change of mindset and a change of practice because of those conversations with people from the design school here, as well as colleagues at the University of Sydney. So how do we get away from it? I think probably forming proper relationships and having difficult conversations. I mean, even, like I go to humanities things and people talk about different ways of knowing. I'm going, oh, yeah, I don't think so. I'm really hardwired about certain ways of understanding the natural world, and that's really uncomfortable for, I like science. I think it's a great way of learning truths, but a lot of people don't, and I respect that, but I don't like it as much.
And I should just say it was Survival Stories created by Zoe that's been able to bring together those many different approaches from design as well as from science and climate communications all into one very happy package. So keep an eye out for Survival Stories on our website. Thanks, Zoe.